Excuse me. Excuse me. What does God need with a starship? Hello, welcome to Alyssa Jean's Reviews. My name is Alyssa, and this is my review for Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. This is a part of a series of reviews in which I rewatch and review each of the original 6 Star Trek films 1 month at a time. It is the month of May, which unfortunately means that it is time for me to review Star Trek V. This review is going to be a little different than the previous film reviews that I've done for Star Trek, because in those previous reviews, what I did when I was watching it, I would take notes for each scene, and I would pause the film often so I could make sure I'm caught up on my notes, and then I would use those notes to do a thorough scene-by-scene breakdown. In fact, my Star Trek 4 review ended up being 50 minutes long because I went through like everything. And I had a lot to say about everything as well. Whereas Star Trek V, I didn't take notes. I was too drunk to take notes. Some of you may have seen me on my live chat that I did on Saturday, in which I was already starting to drink wine and I was preparing to watch Star Trek V because the only way I was going to get through this movie was to be drunk. That was the only way I was going to survive it. And I did. And thankfully, it was only an hour and 46-minute runtime. I think that's the best thing that I can say about this film is that it's short compared to the other films. So that's good. That's the most positive thing I have to say about it, though. So what I'll do is I'll do my overview, just kind of my overall thoughts of the film, and then I will go through scene by scene the best I can by memory, but I'm not going to go through every scene, and it's not going to be a really thorough breakdown, but this film honestly does not deserve that, so it doesn't matter. So let me start with my overall thoughts, my overview of this film. I recall when Star Trek 4 came out, in 1986, that the future of the Star Trek franchise was up in the air. I don't think I knew personally the Next Generation was for sure happening. I think I'd heard rumblings of it. And it didn't seem like there necessarily was going to be a Star Trek V. I remember when William Shatner hosted Saturday Night Live late in that year, 1986. They did a sketch called Star Trek V, and it was about to start. The Enterprise got turned into a seafood restaurant, and it's still a pretty great sketch. If you find it on YouTube, you should check it out. But anyways, they called the sketch Star Trek V because they didn't even know there was going to be a Star Trek V necessarily. And I remember thinking there probably wasn't going to be one. There ended up being one for, by my estimation, 2 reasons. One, cash money. Star Trek 4 made a lot of money, so they wanted to try to cash in on yet another film by milking the Star Trek film franchise. And the other big reason was that William Shatner was basically going, I want to direct a movie too. I don't even want to direct 2 movies, and I didn't get to direct any. That's how I interpreted it. So they gave William Shatner his wish and had him direct this film. He also, I noticed, is given writing credit. I saw him and Harv Bennett and a third person were listed as the writers in the opening credits. And that's why this movie sucks. So I don't have a lot of respect for William Shatner as an actor, as a director, as a writer, and frankly, from what I can glean from what I've seen on television and over the years, I don't really have a lot of respect for him as a person. He just seems to have a really big ego, thinks really high of himself, doesn't seem to necessarily be nice to people around him. Which I think is reflected in the fact that him and George Takei have had a long-standing feud, and George Takei is a great guy. That is without question, so I'm definitely on Team Takei on that one. He doesn't seem like a very good person, William Shatner, and he's not very good at any of those other things. He just thinks he is. And this film is proof that he sucks at directing and writing, because this is awful, awful writing. The writing somewhat reminds me of the writing of Star Trek Picard Season 2, which, of course, I just reviewed recently and did a lot of ranting on because the writing is awful. There's some similar things. You've got characters with no motivations, characters doing things for no reason, things just happening. The very thin plot that does exist is not a very well thought out, not a very good plot. It's kind of a dumb plot, for being honest. You've got characters acting out of character, such as Spock, which I'll get into as I get into more of the details. And it's just not a very well-written film. It's not a very well-directed film. And it definitely feeds into William Shatner's ego. And I'll point out some of that as I go through, as you'll see how Captain Kirk is treated in this film as compared to, say, Spock. And I'll point out some of that. This film is also the exact opposite of Star Trek 4 as far as the comedy. I said in my Star Trek 4 review that it was the gold standard for comedy in Star Trek. It is what all Star Trek should aspire to, should it attempt comedy, and I'm okay if it doesn't attempt comedy. This film tried so hard to be funny. And not only was it not funny, but it was actively unfunny. Like, it actively pissed me off and annoyed the crap out of me. It was so not funny. Because it's written by William Shatner mostly, I think. I think that's a lot to do with it, because William Shatner's not very funny. They just had random weird things happening that they were trying to make funny that just didn't make any sense. And nothing encapsulates that more than the scene with Scotty, which they actually showed in the trailer. I remember them showing this in the trailer before Star Trek V came out, where Scotty goes, "Oh, I know this ship like the back of my hand," bonk, and bumps his head onto the ship randomly, and he's knocked out unconscious. He has to go to sick bay, and like, it's a thing, like it's a big thing that happened. Like, he's knocked out unconscious. Like, what the fuck? That is so bizarre and random. And then the fact that they showed that on the trailer, so we already knew that was coming. And it wasn't funny the first time I saw it in the trailer, or the 500th time I saw it in the trailer, and it certainly wasn't funny by the time I saw it in the film. It was just weird, and that just kind of encapsulates the whole film and just how they tried to be funny. Many times they really were trying to be like a slapstick comedy, like they were trying to be a comedy. It is terrible. It is actively unfunny and actively annoying. So this film is so bad. I would go as far as to say that this is unequivocally the worst Star Trek film. And if you know me at all, you know that that's saying a lot, because honestly, I dislike the vast majority of Star Trek films ever made. To me, Star Trek is a TV show. Its strength are in the television shows. That's the strength of Star Trek. To me, it is not a film franchise, and it's not very strong when it makes films. Okay, so we got Star Trek 2, 4, and 6. I'd say Generations is mediocre, and that's it. That's it. The rest of them are garbage. So I know that people would disagree with me on First Contact, but I did a whole video about how that is the most overrated film, and it is objectively bad. I did a whole video on that. I'll put it at the end of this video with one of the little links that'll come up on your screen at the end of the video. So you can check out my opinion on that. And then what was the other one? Insurrection, or I don't know. There's a really forgettable one that comes after that is not a very good film. And then Nemesis was just a Wrath of Khan ripoff. And then we have the J.J. Abrams films. If you know me, you know how I feel about those. 2009 was an awful film. Into Darkness, not a wonderful film either. That last one, or was that one Insurrection? I can never remember what the hell the names of any of these movies are. That one was mediocre, I guess. So that's how I feel about the film. So saying the Star Trek 5 is unequivocally the worst film is saying a lot for me because I don't like most of them. So Star Trek 5 is not only the worst Star Trek film, but it is one of the worst films, period, that I have seen. Worst films in general, any kind of film. It's just so bad. Anyways, so with that out of the way, let me go ahead and go through this movie somewhat, and I'll tell you in more detail why this is the worst Star Trek film ever made. Let me go through the film. So it opens up with this desert planet, but it's not Tatooine. And we meet this character who ends up being completely inconsequential, even though it's set up like he's going to be important, but he's just there to show that Cybok can take away people's pain. And of course, we are introduced to Cybok, and it is a big reveal when he takes off his hood, and there's pointed ears, and the guy's like, oh, you're a Vulcan! Even though it was in the fucking trailer that he was Spock's brother. Everybody already knew there was Spock's brother going into the movie, but sure, let's have a big reveal. And why did he jump to the conclusion that it's a Vulcan, especially the way he was behaving? I would have thought Romulan. So, I don't know. So that was really strange to me. Then we get the opening credits, which I did not remember that they are reusing the theme from the motion picture, which is also, of course, used in The Next Generation. And at this point, The Next Generation is on the air, so they're using the same theme. Whatever, I don't know. And then we get the scene in Yosemite, which Lower Decks did a good parody of last season, which was really good. So Lower Decks parody is way funnier than anything in this movie. So Kirk is, showing how macho he is by climbing without any gear whatsoever or anything or any technology, just his bare hands, because I'm a manly man and I'm climbing up El Capitan. And McCoy is right to be a nervous wreck. McCoy should have never let him do that. Like, that's insane. And then here's where Spock first acts out of character. He's flying up there in the anti-gravity boots just to taunt Captain Kirk. Like, what is he doing? He's just like, oh, Captain, so just so you know, there is absolutely no danger of the record of the fastest time to climb El Capitan being broken right now. Like, why did he fly up there just to taunt him like that? Like, why would Spock do that? And then Kirk falls 100% because of Spock. Like, Spock was up there taunting him and distracting him, and Spock is 100% the reason why Kirk falls. So what is he doing? This is William Shatner, just his portrayal of Spock. Oh, Spock is just this annoying thorn in the side of our great and brave and wonderful Captain Kirk, who's trying to climb up El Capitan with his bare hands. Look at how Spock is just a thorn in his side. See the William Shatner ego coming through right at the very beginning. This makes no sense. And then we get the scene where they're around the campfire and singing "Row, row, row your boat." And again, this is one of the scenes that I think is supposed to be comedy, but it's a bunch of obnoxious drunk people sitting around a fire singing a bad song, and Captain Kirk really acting like William Shatner, quite honestly, just being an obnoxious drunk and being really irritating. And this is not even remotely funny. It's really annoying. This scene is so annoying. Then we get back to Cybok. What's that planet called? Nimbus 3. And we're introduced to these three, what do you call them? Emissaries, whatever. One of the Romulans, one of the Klingons, and one of the Federation. And we get the kind of lowdown on what the concept of this planet is, that it's supposed to be like a paradise between the three governments all coming together and having this planet together, but it's a desert planet and it's not a paradise. And apparently the three governments are represented by three individual people and nobody else. And this is a dumb concept. It doesn't make any sense at all. Also, they call this city Paradise City. And there's a scene later where Uhura keeps calling it Paradise City, and I just kept thinking, take me down to the Paradise City, and the grass is green, and the girls are pretty. Oh, take me home which is actually around the same time. That song was out around the same time as this movie. But it's a dumb concept for a planet. It makes no sense. And then the Cybok comes in and he wants to take them captive because he needs to lure a starship to take him off the planet. Excuse me. Why does Cybok not already have a starship? Like, how did he get there? I don't know. Maybe that was explained and I just missed it. It's totally possible because I wasn't always paying attention to this movie, if I'm being honest. So, I don't know. Maybe there was a line thrown in there as to he was stranded there intentionally. Somebody dropped him off there and he was in exile or something, even though why would he be in exile on the Paradise Planet or whatever? I don't know. And no one on the entire planet has access to a ship of any kind. Is that what you're telling me? Maybe it's not a ship that can get through the Great Barrier, but at the very least he can leave the planet and go, and then go get the Enterprise or whatever. But I don't know. And the whole thing makes no sense. Doesn't make any sense. Speaking of not making any sense, we then find out that the Enterprise A is in no shape at all to go anywhere, and we have the Star Trek IV dramatic ending undercut, where Captain Kirk was like, oh, I forget what his line was. It wasn't engage, but it was like, let's go get it. Let's go out there. Let's explore. And they take off, and I am certain that was originally intended to be they're taking off for their next adventure, not that Scotty going, oh, he says, let's see what she got. Well, we saw, didn't we? And then the doors aren't working properly and everything is broken. Okay, so you're telling me that Starfleet Command is that incompetent? First of all, to be that incompetent that they can't even get a fucking ship in working order, like it's that bad off that the doors don't even work properly. Like, what kind of incompetent nincompoops do they have as mechanics in Starfleet? And then secondly, that Starfleet Command would put Kirk and his crew onto this ship that doesn't work and say, okay, here's your ship, go out there. And then Kirk would go, okay, let's go. And they would, go off and the ship doesn't work. How would Starfleet Command be that incompetent? It makes no sense. It was thrown in there for comedy. And Scotty is supposed to be funny in this movie. And you know what? I love Scotty all throughout the television show and the films. I think James Doohan is just naturally charming. So you have to actually try really hard to make Scotty unfunny and annoying as he is in this movie. Like, they had to go out of their way to take away all of James Doohan's natural charm and the natural humor that he has just being on screen and making him really obnoxious and annoying. Like, they really had to try hard. Good job. You succeeded. So the whole thing is stupid. And then we have another scene later on. I'm probably going out of order here, but who cares? Later on, where there's an admiral sending Captain Kirk to go on this important mission. And here's another thing playing into William Shatner's ego, where he's like, oh, well, this ship is barely working. We can't really do anything. Well, I don't care about the condition of the ship. I need Captain Kirk because of all the other hundreds of Starfleet captains. Captain Kirk is the only one worthy of this really important mission. Ego! William Shatner's ego! So that's what all that is. And it makes no fucking sense. Like, this movie makes no sense. So... so anyway, so then they're going off to this fake mission to, rescue the emissaries, or not emissaries, but commissioners. I don't know. Ambassadors, whatever the fuck they are, to go rescue them from Cybok. Meanwhile, all throughout this film, we are periodically shown this incompetent Klingon captain going, oh, I'm going to get the great James T. Kirk. It's one of the dumbest storylines I've ever seen. And it leads to a cringy scene with this captain at the end of the film that I'll talk about a little bit later. So there's that happening. I don't really have much to say about that. I do want to point out, though, the ambassadors, or whatever they are, there's the Federation guy. I want to bring him up because he's played by an actor, David Warner. who would go on to appear in Star Trek 6 as well. He would play High Chancellor, I think Gorgon or something like that, the Klingon Chancellor in Star Trek 6. But even more important than that, David Warner would come back in Star Trek The Next Generation Season 6 and play Gul Musset from the really great episodes, Chain of Command Parts 1 and 2. And in case you're wondering who Gul Musset is, he, of course, is the Cardassian who is being yelled at by Captain Picard when he goes, "There are fallites!" So, it's good for me to take a pause and look at this actor and go, oh yeah, he's going to be in something good and later on in his career, and think about quality Star Trek. It's just to take a breath and think about a quality Star Trek episode. Because his character here is just like a nothing character, as most characters in this film are. They're just flat, poorly written, nothing characters. So at least he gets to play a good character later on in Star Trek. So anyway, blah, blah, blah. Cyback lures the Enterprise over. They do this ridiculous ploy where Chekhov pretends to be the captain, which, whatever, because Captain Kirk can't send somebody else to do it because William Shatner's ego, Captain Kirk's got to be the one to save the day, blah, blah, blah. So they do all that. We found out the ambassadors have had their pain taken away by Sybok, so Sybok has vaguely brainwashed him. So this always bothered me. Like, he has this vague brainwashing powers that just kind of wear off at the end of the movie. Like, they're just back to normal at the end of the movie. All the people he brainwashed. So it makes no sense. So anyway, we get all of that and yada yada, blah blah blah, yada yada. They go to find God. That's the whole thing that they're trying to do. Then we get the reveal, like halfway through the movie, that Sybok is Spock's brother, even though, as I said, that was in the fucking trailer. And at the beginning of the movie, they have Spock just say, well, he was an old friend that I grew up with or whatever. And then, for no reason whatsoever, hiding the fact that Sybok is his brother. Why was he hiding that? He was embarrassed? I don't know. Like, why does he not say that until halfway through the movie? Like, oh, you wanted me to kill my brother. And Kirk was like, oh, I know he's a fellow Vulcan. And Spock's like, no, quite literally, he's my brother. Why didn't you fucking say it at the beginning of the movie? Like, why is he pretending that he's not his brother? Didn't make any sense. So they could have this big reveal of something we already knew from the trailer. Like, well, what the fuck? And for the record, I don't think that Sybok, Spock, and Michael Burnham all hung out together. I think only one of them can be truly canon, and frankly, I prefer it to be Michael Burnham as being Spock's stepsister as canon, and Sybok. Let's just pretend that Sybok didn't exist. Let's sweep him under the rug. Although if Star Trek Picard Season 3 is anything like Star Trek Picard Season 2, they'll reference Sybok because they like referencing the worst things about Star Trek that should be swept under the rug, like how they reference a Cyber Earth. Anyways, I'm getting sidetracked. So yeah, whole thing is a disaster, blah blah blah. Hey, let's go and find God. Now, let me just skip to that part because there's nothing really worth talking about in this movie. Okay, I guess before I get into the whole final confrontation with God, I will talk about the whole Sybok taking away the pain from McCoy and Spock, and there's just long, drawn-out scenes with McCoy trying to save I think that was his dad. I'll be honest, I wasn't fully paying attention to this. I was like doing other things. Like I was like, I need to go clean out my bathtub. So, like I kind of hear it from the other room, but like I wasn't really fully paying attention to it because this movie is so bad. But yeah, there's long. I didn't miss the whole thing because there's long, drawn out scenes and all of that for nothing because Spock and McCoy, I guess, aren't ultimately brainwashed by it because they end up standing by Kirk, and that is the most positive thing I can say about this film is I do agree with Kirk here. We do need our pain. I thought that was a very good message, but I think it would have made more sense coming from Spock since he's the Vulcan, but I don't know, but Kirk again has to be the hero, so because it's William Shatner's movie, so I don't know. So then like all the brainwashing just wears off, and they're all so Cybok is just like, so we're here, so you might as well just help me find God. And Kirk's like, okay, team, let's go do it. And like, what? Why would he do that? That's so stupid. So they go down the planet, and this, of course, is when we meet God, and he asks for a starship. And then this is, of course, is the famous scene with Captain Kirk going, excuse me, what does God need with the starship? And not only what does God need with the starship, how is God practically going to ride on a starship? Like, he's definitely some sort of energy being, even if he's not a god per se. So I never understood from the very first time I saw this movie how that is supposed to work in a practical sense. Like, how were they going to haul this energy being thing onto the Enterprise? And if he's so powerful, why could he not just draw the Enterprise down with all of his powers and just get on it, or whatever he's going to do on it? Like, I don't get that. And like, also, why was he never able to draw a starship to him before? I don't know. Well, I guess because the Great Barrier and all that. I guess that would be why he was never able to get a star. But once it's there, like, wouldn't he just be able to use all of his powers just to get on it? He didn't even know where it was. He was like, where's the starship? Like, what kind of god are you? He's not a very good advanced being, or whatever you want to call that thing. So nothing in this whole thing makes sense. And of course, the transporter conveniently can only beam up 2 people, so that Kirk can have this heroic scene because he's heroic Kirk. But then he does get saved by Spock, who's the gunner on the Klingon ship. And I just always thought it was so lame, that scene where they're like, "Oh, meet my new gunner," and it's Spock. And this is like the dumbest thing ever when the Klingon ambassador, I don't know what the hell he was, outranked the Klingon, really ridiculous Klingon commander. And it's like a parent scolding the child. This is the dumbest thing ever, where he's like, my underling has something to say to you, Kirk. I'm sorry. Like, what the fuck? He's like a little kid. Like, this is the dumbest fucking thing I've ever seen. This is what you came up with, William Shatner? This is a giant piece of crap. This whole movie is a giant piece of crap. And so the only positive thing I can say about the very end is that at least Spock busts out the lyre for the first time. I mentioned the lyre in my Strange New Worlds review. I think Ethan Peck needs to do a lyre solo. I need to see more lyre. Spock playing the lyre. So he's playing the lyre along to Row, Row, Row Your Boat. And now they're all getting along, and they're happy now because Captain Kirk has saved the day. God, this movie sucks so much. Okay, that's it. I'm done talking about this movie. Let me go ahead now and give my rating out of 10 for this film. So each month I give every Star Trek film a rating out of 10, with 1 being the lowest possible score, 10 being the highest possible score. So my rating for Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, if you have not already guessed, is an absolute 1. The absolute worst Star Trek film, and one of the worst films I've ever seen, period. Giant piece of crap put together by William Shatner. And thankfully they did make Star Trek 6 to kind of redeem themselves and go out on a high note. And I think the only reason Star Trek 6 was made was to redeem themselves from this terrible piece of shit. If Star Trek 5 had been good, I think they would have probably just ended it there. But speaking of Star Trek 6, I will be reviewing it next month, and it will be the final film in this series in which I review all 6 of the original films. I'm so looking forward to seeing Star Trek 6. I haven't seen it in a while, and it is definitely a lot better than Star Trek 5. That I know for sure. All right, thank you so much for joining me. Please subscribe if you have not already. Please hit the like button and hit the bell for notification, do all that great stuff, and check out my reviews weekly for Star Trek Strange New Worlds. And I will see you next month for my review for Star Trek 6. Goodbye, everybody.